There is nothing that takes the wind out of an MMA show's sails, quite like a disqualification. And for today's video, we're going to take a look of some of the most famous fighter DQs in mixed martial arts history. Petr Yan. A pretty recent entry comes in first courtesy of the former bantamweight champion Petr Yan. Now, this one is just plain weird. Yan, who seemed like the type of champion who would never lose his title, was putting on a pretty strong performance in there with Aljamain Sterling, stifling his opponent at every turn. Coming into round 4, it seemed as though Yan was headed straight for a highly impressive title defense. But then, something very odd happened. Sterling was sitting in this strange squatting position, trying to get back to his feet but unable to do so due to Yan holding his head down. It was clear that Aljo was grounded. Any single person in that arena could have told you that. But for whatever reason, Petr Yan decided to fire off a knee to his opponent's face, landing this clearly illegal strike in full view of the referee. Now, to be fair, Sterling's reaction seemed a little over the top, with the fight slipping out of his grasp. Who knows what he thought in that moment? What we can say for sure is that Yan made one hell of an error, becoming the first champion to lose their belt by way of disqualification in UFC history. He would go on to lose the rematch to Sterling after a divisive set of scorecards, where Aljo's wrestling and excellent back control allowed him to steal pivotal rounds and retain the title. Was Sterling's response to the knee a little suspect? Sure, but let's not forget that it was Yan who fired the illegal shot in the first place. Gilbert Yvel. No fighter in MMA has a reputation for disqualification, blatant cheating, and all-around bad sportsmanship like Gilbert Yvel. But even by his lofty standards, this DQ was truly insane. Tasked with taking a fight in Helsinki, Finland, this infamous Dutch kickboxer started to notice that a few things were a bit off about the contest. It seemed as though his opponent Ate Backman had the full support of everyone involved in the fight, including the judges and referee. As the hometown hero fighting out of Helsinki, Backman seemed to have the deck stacked in his favor according to Yvel. And mid-fight, the referee in question repeatedly tried to take away crucial clinch positions from him, offsetting his rhythm while very clearly favoring Backman. Eventually, Gilbert snapped and decided to punch the referee square in the jaw. Seriously, he just turned around and put his lights out there and then. Not only is this one of the very rare cases of a DQ due to ref KO in MMA history, but given that Yvel was already in hot water with the MMA due to his conduct, it's a miracle that he was allowed to fight again. But he did, and he went on to spend another 14 years competing in mixed martial arts. If you are enjoying this content and want to see more videos like this, drop a comment and subscribe to our channel to never miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Jon Jones. Jon Jones could well find himself in real danger of suffering his first legitimate loss when he moves up to heavyweight. But despite never being finished or losing on the scorecards, Jones managed to leave one major blemish on his pro record early in his career. The year was 2009, and Jones was 3 fights into his soon-to-be legendary UFC career. His fourth opponent, Matt Hamill, wasn't expected to give the highly touted prospect any real problems. And sure enough, when the fight started, it was just about as dominant as you would expect. Jones had little to no issue in finding the takedown, using his powerful wrestling to control Hamill while he remained down with powerful ground and pound. But as he moved in for the kill, the referee separated the action, claiming that Jones had been using illegal 12-6 downward elbows. The replays confirmed as much, and while Jon was initially only penalized with a point deduction, Hamill, who had already dislocated his shoulder mid-fight, was deemed unfit to continue.
He's doing a good job. Big elbows. No.
Jones was handed his first defeat in the octagon, the only loss on his record to this day. Was it a fair DQ? Sure, if you are following the rules to a T. But as recently as 2019, UFC President Dana White has been doing his utmost to get this result overturned, a move that will leave Jon with a clean and untarnished record. Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy signing with the UFC was already controversial enough, given his history. But when the time came for him to make his promotional debut, his doubters were given some major fuel for their fire. Facing off against Alan Crowder, Hardy didn't take long to make a first impression. Except it wasn't the type of first impression that he had hoped for. In the second round, Hardy nailed Crowder with a knee while his target was clearly grounded. The second the impact was made, it became clear that this MMA newcomer didn't know the rules well enough. No one likes to see a fight end like this, but in some ways, this result made Dana White's decision to bring in this totally untested former football player look even sillier. The disqualification loss was given and Hardy's reputation took yet another big hit. He would go on to find some decent success in the octagon up until his overall game was exposed. But as far as UFC debuts are concerned, this was a bad one.
And immediately the referee intervenes.
Hardy would last just over 3 years in the promotion, fighting out of his contract before becoming a free agent in 2022. Anderson Silva. And finally, we come to yet another legend of the MMA game. A lot of you will have no doubt watched Anderson Silva's 2011 title defense against Yushin Okami, the second round TKO that led to the Spider's second fight with Chael Sonnen. But what you might not know is that the UFC 134 headliner was actually not the first time Silva and Okami shared the cage together. No, back before Anderson had made his UFC debut, Rumble on the Rock 8 played host to a tournament featuring some future legends of the sport. Silva and Okami were paired up in the first round, but the bracket also featured huge names like Carlos Condit, Jake Shields, and Frank Trigg. Silva was expected to progress in the semifinals with a win over Okami, but after finding himself on his back early, Silva fired off an upkick at Okami, landing cleanly while the Japanese fighter's knees were on the ground. Unfortunately, the ref correctly deemed the shot to be an illegal one, and when Okami wasn't able to continue, it led to an immediate DQ. Anderson felt like Yushin had played the damage up for the cameras, and for that reason, he took an extra level of pleasure TKOing him 5 years later.